So from my perspective, what we're trying to do with the internationalisation is really support our members and support the individuals. So Roland mentioned quite a lot about this is what CREST is doing. In actual fact, we're doing it on behalf of our members and on behalf of the industry to try to professionalise and try and grow that industry as a whole. So we believe this is a really important aspect, and we think everybody from the community will benefit from the opportunities that this opens up, as well as the consistency in which we're applying. As I mentioned when I opened up this morning, we've got people here from Australia, we've got people here from the US, we've got people here from Singapore. It's a really international activity in terms of some of the things that we're trying to do. So I'd like to publicly thank Roland for all the support he's given CREST and all of the work he's done on their behalf. This has been quite a difficult thing to do, and trying to link in with the assessors and the UK and then international exec is quite an active thing that we have to do. And it's quite a difficult thing because we have to bring everybody along with the vision, and it's a very difficult thing to do. So I'd like to publicly thank Roland for that opportunity. I thought I'd move on, as long as there aren't any more questions, to a slide that's not there, that one. So I just thought I'd fill, really, that's the idea. But really just to describe where we're going in terms of some of the other initiatives. From our perspective, a scheme is quite a defined term. It's a combination of the company accreditation and the use of professional individuals within that carry certain qualifications. Roland's mentioned CBEST and STAR, and that's been mentioned quite a lot throughout the day. But in addition to that, we've just launched TBEST, which is the telecommunications equivalent. We're doing some work with Raycastle at the moment in terms of developing some training courses that's looking at developing some of the staff who are carrying out that type of assessment for the telecommunications industry. So that's going to roll out very soon. They're actually running the trials of that towards the end of this month, and then with a view that we're going to operate with all the 6 telecommunications organisations in the UK sometime in the mid next year. So there's a programme of work that will move through. In addition to that, we've been talking to some of the people in Singapore about that. So Singtel are already interested in what we're doing in that particular domain. And we have a strategy that we've defined in terms of looking at other areas of critical national infrastructure. So we understand the information exchanges, we understand how they operate, and what we've got is a programme of activity which will gradually work down the list of other areas of the critical national infrastructure. Well, we're doing that in collaboration and with some support from the NCSC, and I'd like to see that as part of an integral and unified strategy for what we're doing about the CNI. We're currently talking to the civil nuclear industry and the general energy industry. I've got a meeting next week with transportation in terms of rail, but we're also having some conversations with both road and air. I'd like to have further conversations with aerospace, and then moving into the other areas, including water, gas, government, and all of those sorts of areas. So our view is we'll extend this area in terms of looking at covering certain parts of the critical national infrastructure for the future. So those are new schemes that will be launched, but hopefully we'll be able to amalgamate those with the existing protocols we've got in terms of the way we deliver those services. In addition to that, Roland didn't mention too much about the work we're doing with the NSA. We already do the accreditation for incident response organisations from the UK. On behalf of the NSA. So we accredit the organisations that run the NSA Incident Response Programme. They're just running another scheme looking at vulnerability assessment. That's just completed its trial. We quite like some of the things they've done. They took on board an awful lot of our comments, and what they're doing at the moment is analysing how they're going to view that vulnerability assessment rollout in terms of accreditation of companies that are providing those services. From a UK perspective, I think that gives us some really good opportunities to think about what we look like in the marketplace. What we're seeing, and if you walk around some of the exhibition space, we're seeing more advanced vulnerability assessment tools, really trying to replicate some of the lower level penetration testing, so augmenting the skill and knowledge of the individual penetration tester. I think there's going to be a lot more of that. And if you look at the low-level work that's been done by some of the Czech companies, then again, some of the comments that Ian made this morning about automated assessment of websites, applications and services, I think at that bottom end, I think that's an appropriate thing for us to look at and consider whether or not we can accredit companies at that bottom level. At that point, I think we need to step up and look at how we're going to break down the penetration testing and actually reward people for doing good things, not just for doing cyber essentials. So, in other words, we need to look at some of the standards we use in terms of our reporting, and I believe some of our new US exec will actually help us with that in terms of helping us define what we might be able to do in those areas. Again, Ian hinted this morning in terms of revisions to the check scheme. We are actively having those conversations with the check scheme manager and more senior people about what that's going to look like in terms of standards and reporting. And again, if we can amalgamate those into a process that we can roll out on both a geographic basis in terms of the UK, but also internationally, then that would be fantastic. And I think that's a direction of play. We've also obviously moved into the threat intelligence area in terms of accrediting companies on threat intelligence. I think over time that particular industry is going to emerge and change very slightly. And what I'm hoping to see is us doing much more continual threat information. So in other words, we can see attacks coming over the hill and be able to react to those before they actually occur. For the first time in my career, the opportunity to say we're anticipating some attacks happening, and therefore we should be doing some penetration testing. We should be doing our patching to make sure everything's up to date. We should be running our business continuity plans from a crisis management perspective to see if we're protected. It would be the first time ever we can actually react to the threat. So I see the reverse happening in terms of penetration testing, generating threat intelligence work, to threat intelligence work starting to generate opportunity for penetration testers and security architects. So again, I think that particular area of the industry is going to mature, and I think again with the work we're doing with the critical national infrastructure, that will tie those things together. So there's quite a few things we're doing in terms of looking at how these schemes are operating. I think we should do much more in terms of our incident response, not in terms of improving it necessarily, but in actual fact marketing it and making sure that people understand how to buy good in this area. And again, I think if on an international basis we can do that, that's going to really help us. There's a lot going on in terms of the company accreditation schemes and making that a more effective way of doing things. We're very fortunate we've got a new member of staff that's an ISO 27001 auditor. We're looking at doing this via portals that are equivalent to the NSA portal we use for their accreditation. So we're also trying to make life easier for our members. If you drop down to the professional qualification side, I absolutely want CREST to be the hardest examination on the street. And that's where we are currently. And I think that's where we should maintain our position. Again, as a not-for-profit organisation, that really gives us the opportunity to do things, I think, in a structured way. And in many ways, what I'd like to do is to see the level of difficulty associated with some of those technologies and some of the examinations in that area get even harder. We need to understand how we're going to deliver that on scale. And again, I think that provides opportunity for everybody. But absolutely, we want to be at the top of the tree in terms of the level of professionalisation. It's really interesting, again, standing in this room, the 6,000 hours, the 10,000 hours and repeating is things that we're actually absolutely looking at in terms of other professions. And what we need to do is to replicate those. I think the real advantage we've got over some of the existing professions is that we can look forward a bit faster than them. If you look at the law firms at the moment, they're trying to grapple with the idea of moving from partnerships to limited companies. But in addition to that, we're seeing the whole tranche of paralegals potentially disappearing because of artificial intelligence. What we can draw from that is the idea that we're going to have a big tranche of the para-cyber people removed by some of the artificial intelligence using with automated vulnerability assessment tools and low-level penetration testing. I think our advantage is we can see that coming now and we can react to it in terms of what our profession looks like for the future. And I think some of the existing professions are going to really struggle. So I think we're going to straddle over the top of some of the existing professions, but a really interesting area. What I'd also like to see from the qualification side is that all paths lead to us. So we have to understand we sit within an ecosystem. There are really low-level qualifications, there are mid-range qualifications, and then there's CREST qualifications is the way I view it. But we have to sit within that ecosystem. And if we're going to actually push this out into the marketplace and actually get really skilled, knowledgeable and competent individuals, then what we've got to do is to exist within that ecosystem, understand where all of that fits and understand the career pathways and the development, right the way from education through into drawing people into our industry and then providing them the career pathway in the same ways that other professions have done in the past. And that's a huge opportunity for us to have a larger hopper of young people that are hopefully coming into the industry, and we're doing whatever we can to support initiatives in that area. At the top end, we're going to introduce a fellowship from CREST, and that's going to be very soon. There's going to be 3 elements of the fellowship association. So one is if you've carried a certification level, so CREST certified level for 3 years, in other words, for 3 terms. So it's 6 years plus a little bit. then you'll be issued a fellowship. That's a lifetime fellowship. You'll still have to carry on doing the exams if you want to operate, say, within CBEST or TBEST or some of the other schemes. But really, we're trying to reward people that are at the top of the tree, have been there for a long time, have contributed. There will also be fellowships awards for people that have served for a longer period of time on the exec, and then other people that have been nominated that have made a significant contribution to the industry. So there'll be 3 different elements of fellowship. In the other room, Alistair is starting to talk about charters. So the idea of moving towards a Royal Charter status is something that CREST isn't really interested in doing currently. There's an awful lot of administration that would have to be put in place to do that. But understanding how that chartered position takes in terms of a cyber person is a really important thing. And we're having conversations with people to look at 4 pathways into a charter status. The one is the general IT, the other is industrial control systems and IET, the other is more specifically policy and management side of security, and then there's the tech side, which is really the area that we're most interested. So what we're trying to do is to defend a pathway that allows technologists to move through into a charter status in cyber, which at that point we are really starting to replicate what we're doing in terms of other industries. A really exciting thing for the future. Knowledge sharing is really important to us. This part of this is what we're doing here today. That's why we film everything. On CREST Advocate, we had around about 80,000 downloads in the last quarter of last year. So more people watch the presentations online than actually come to CRESTCon, which I think is fantastic. We're going to restructure that to allow more accessibility to that content and really make it available free of charge to anybody who wants to view it. Our view is we're trying to upskill a whole community and we're trying to encourage more people in. Why wouldn't we give that content away? Which is different from what you'd see from some other venues and some other conference organisers. But all of that content is available for free. This year we're running a virtual stream as well, so Bright Talk have been interviewing people all day. That's going to be issued fairly soon after this event, but it's a complete new stream of people doing different presentations, and that's again going to be available free of charge on the CREST Advocate channel. So an awful lot going on there. We've continued to break down our concept in terms of knowledge sharing in 2 areas. So one is the support to the industry. We're just about to launch our industrial control systems report. It's been slightly later than I wanted. We're trying to combine it with CPNI's update to their report, but as they've merged into the NCSC, that's taken longer than they anticipated. We've got some really good comments back from the old CPNI people and the NCSC in terms of what we've done, but there's a really good document coming out on industrial control systems. In addition to that, we've also been looking at our maturity models, the incident handling and the continuity maturity model that's free of charge off our website. That's used quite a lot, and we're just about to launch a penetration testing one as well. That's not looking at how to do penetration testing, but it's hopefully to look at your clients, if you're a supplier, or you as an organisation, to understand the context in which you're operating and put together a full programme of penetration testing and other assurance services. I think it's really good. We could really do comments back on that when people start to use it. But again, what we're trying to do is to make organisations more sticky, and we're trying to make it much easier for us to sell services, but also for organisations to procure those services based on a better understanding of their maturity within the marketplace. We've been looking at an international maturity model. I've had some conversations with Sadie at Oxford University. They've got a more generic cyber security maturity model. Ours is quite specific in terms of technical capability and supply within the country. But again, there's quite a lot of interest in that, and hopefully some of the work we're doing with the Foreign Office will allow us to move that forward. So there's quite a lot we're doing in terms of developing material in that area. If we look more generically, then for this year, we've just started to do some work on looking at bug bounty programs, so understand how that fits within the context of what we do, whether or not the industry thinks that's a good, bad, or an indifferent thing to do, or how we can manage it, or should we manage it. That's quite an interesting debate, and there's quite a lot of very different points of view coming from absolutely it's a great thing to this is the most stupid thing I've ever heard in my life, and the truth sits somewhere in the middle. So again, we're just about to start some research on that, and we're also looking at things like social engineering at the moment as well, to see if we can put more of a discipline in that in terms of how we're doing this type of work. Under that area, the work we're doing with CHEC, the work we're doing with other organisations to look at the future of schemes, all fits under that generic development of the industry type activity. The really exciting thing is if you look at developments we're doing at the moment in SOC, so this is Secure Operating Centre accreditation, that will drop into the scheme, the company membership and the professional qualifications area. We're already tying it into the higher apprenticeship programs, really exciting. And for the first time ever, we're going to be combining doing our audits from a paper perspective, but also reverse engineering our rigs potentially to assess the capability of the SOC in terms of picking up different forms of traffic. And we can do those at least 3 levels is what we're currently looking at the moment. So hopefully that research will start to migrate over into that SOC accreditation. The reason why I mention that one specifically is because we ran exactly the same workshop as we ran in the UK in Singapore. So what we did was we just teleconferenced it. We did it in a slightly different format, but there's a huge amount of interest. We've got a lot of interest to try and run that in Australia, and we've got a huge amount of interest to try and run it in the States. So all of a sudden, our research capability is now becoming international. And again, if we can have international areas in this, the organisations that participate will certainly get an early adopter benefit and will understand the direction of play. None of these things are easy, and I think that's why CREST sort of steps up to the plate to try to do this in a structured way. In addition to that type of knowledge sharing, then we're also doing some of our social responsibility. The reason why the National Autism Society are here was we've recently published a report on how to support people with autism to consider a cyber security related career, and there's a whole pile of activities going on in there. As you're probably aware, we've been working with the National Crime Agency and Metropolitan Police, looking at the intervention points to stop young people going into cybercrime. That, again, is getting quite a lot of international coverage from Europol and Interpol, as well as the work we're doing in the UK. But the really exciting thing about that is, again, a lot of the work we can do is deflecting. It reduces the threat, one of the only things that does, and it provides a positive contribution to the industry itself. We're just about to come out with a new report on that, which is the next stage up from where we were for the original work we did with the NCA, which actually they used as their strategy for their PREVENT program. And some of those individuals within the PREVENT program are working with the counter-terrorism people, they're working with the sexual grooming people, and they're working with the gang people. So we're not only looking at providing alternatives for people to go and learn more about the technology, but they're also trying to tie in some of the social responsibility aspects in terms of understanding what we can do to break the cycle of people only being exposed to people who want to do harm. So it's really good in that. Our gender balance stuff is really good as well. And on the neurodiversity for this year, we'll be looking at things like dyslexia and other things as well, where we hopefully will provide some support and will hopefully provide some guidance and movement forward. And finally, on the professional development side, Roland's hinted that we're trying to look more effectively at what we're doing in a number of different areas. So in terms of the professional development, starting right at the schools level, we've got our careers guide that we've already issued. That goes out an awful lot. The National Crime Agency alone issued 6,000 copies of that at some of the gaming conventions. We wrote that for 14 to 16-year-olds, but now what we've also done is written a university guide. And again, I think that's probably going to be more appropriate, but I think that's going to go really well. We have 18 academic partners in the UK and some overseas. We've already spoken to 14 of their career centres, and those guides will go into their career centres, but hopefully electronically we'll make them available to all students as well. So a really positive thing. Moving up from that, then we've worked with the Tech Partnership and also eSkills in terms of moving the whole process forward in terms of apprenticeships. And there was a presentation earlier from Stefano talking about the apprenticeship programs. The level 4 has been launched, which I think will fit really well in terms of the SOC accreditation. But also we're just about to launch the level 6, which is degree level apprenticeship programs. The idea you can go through an apprenticeship and actually come out with a degree, I think is fantastic. Really, you've got experience, no debt, working, balanced life, and a great deal of support. And for certainly the larger organisations and even some of the smaller ones to be able to spend the levy actually trying to fill in the gaps, I think is a really important thing. Moving up from that, then we're having significant conversations with our training partners. I'll come to the academic partners first. So we have now put a much more structured approach in terms of how we deal with our universities. I think we already provide the universities with a lot. We provide them with support with syllabus. We supply them ethics and careers talks. We provide them with individuals who come and lecture on a particular subject on the courses. We do a free service for any student who wants to send through a CV, and we'll send it out to the hiring managers. There's a whole pile of what I think are tangible things that we do on behalf of the universities, and I think that's going to improve in this year. Moving up to the training organisations, then historically what we've done is we've done a full audit of the training providers offering. That works really well if you've got one security course. If you've got 30 security courses or even 10, if we've got to audit 30 or 10 training courses, it's going to be really expensive. And what we don't want to do as CREST is tax the industry. We're a not-for-profit business. Why would we tax the industry that's trying to provide us with more capability within the marketplace? So we're going to run some workshops with the training providers to try and find an alternative way of doing that assessment, so we have a view about the quality of the provision of service, but at the same time we don't additionally tax that particular industry. I think it's heavily taxed already through the different industry bodies and government. It's really expensive to get on those schemes, and that isn't something I think CREST should replicate. In addition to that, our training overseas, there are huge demands for that. Whilst CREST doesn't provide training, every region we go into requests that training to be provided, and what we need to do is have some understanding of what we're going to offer, and we need to offer that in a structured way. That's really just a quick summary of some of the things we're doing. It's a small organisation. We are pushing very hard to try to make things better. I think we've made real good inroads in terms of a number of different activities, but we can only do that with your support. And the support we get from our members is fantastic. And I think the opportunities we provide, both the individuals trying to get into the marketplace and those employing them, is really good. And the provision of the schemes and services and company accreditation actually is an indication of a differentiator of quality. And again, I think we're moving forward with that on an international and therefore global basis. So again, a big thank you to everybody who's contributed throughout the year. I always try to do this in around about 20 minutes, which is always really tight. I have far too much to say, but I hope that gives you an indication of just some of the things we're doing for this year. So thank you very much for listening and staying so late. Thank you.